Today we're going to learn how to make comic books.
We love the phrase "how to." We're like, there should be no such thing as how to. Like, don't tell me what to do.
Which is funny because a lot of these books say how to on the cover. How to think, how to draw, how to blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think part of why we started the show was we wanted to do not how to make stuff, but how can you make stuff. So it was a way to show different ways to draw different things. That was sort of part of the impetus. So this massive swath of demonstrative texts.
50 books.
Interesting. There's 50 books.
50 books here.
Damn.
So I'm an autodidact. I never went to art school. Taught myself how to draw, and been teaching myself ever since. But I'm just intrigued on ideas. I think early on we threw the idea of like what you should or shouldn't do out the window. But we do talk often on our channel about permission, right? And obviously that's a fallacy or a metaphor because you don't need permission to do anything with art.
Right.
But we talk about how when you see someone else do it, it gives you permission in the sense of like, it opens up a new idea, a new place you can go, something you never knew was possible before. And that's what we're all about, I feel like.
Yeah, totally.
Getting people inspired.
Definitely. And I think the only people who are telling you that there's a way to do something are people who are trying to make money off of you.
That's right.
They're trying to sell you something, and they're trying to limit you so that you listen to them in a certain way. So that's why I think it's so cool to have such a wide variety of shit here.
Yeah, and you can see that to a larger extent in the larger world when people tell you how to think or how to be. It's because they want you to think they have access to the truth.
Right.
When in fact, truth is a pathless land. No one can guide you to the truth. You have to figure that out for yourself.
That's a good name for the episode. So this kind of stuff, my students are not always, but they're frequently asking me like how to draw stuff. So whenever they approach me with that question, that's a tough one to ask because a lot of times their imagination eclipses their ability to draw the thing they want to draw, which I think is true of people of all ages for sure. But specifically with kids because they're at such wildly different developmental stages, and so they might see some kid next to them draw an awesome dragon, and they're like, "Mr. Mike, can you teach me how to draw a dragon?" And I'm like, "All right, well, I can show you how I would draw a dragon." And you can ask your neighbor how they draw their dragon, but the way you draw a dragon is going to be different. But that's a really, really hard thing for people to understand. Is like what they're really saying is like, teach me how to draw like that.
Yeah.
And
teach me how to draw that thing.
Right, and understanding like, oh, I can come to this from my own angle and with my own style and with my own thing. If you don't already have a drawing style, if you haven't already developed those muscles and those skills, that's a really abstract concept. Because you can't see it in your mind. What you can see is the picture. What you can see is the thing the other guy drew.
Yep.
And so the constant comparison starts immediately. And that I think is the biggest thing that anybody who wants to draw or develop their own drawing style, the first thing you need to break is the comparison.
Yep, I agree.
Trap.
You cannot compare things. But that, to your point, when a kid asks you how to draw, they are asking, how do I get to the end?
Right.
Draw me a map, like you were saying, show me step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And this is actually one of the first books I ever found on how to draw when I was like 4 or 5. I found this book, and I drew this character with the cake and the dynamite. Nice. Like, there's an early drawing of Nick when he's 4 drawing this. That's why I tracked this down and bought this book again just to have it.
That's great. And this is basically how I teach kids to draw. I think you can fall into this trap too, where like someone will be like, I want to draw a surfer. And so they'll make it to this point and they'll be like, okay, I drew that surfer. But if they want to make this a character, it's hard to get from here to be like, okay, how do I draw him surfing? Because you've just gotten to this step.
Yep.
But starting with these loose shapes is exactly what I tell the kids all the time. You start with some shapes, you kind of stitch them together, and then you do it lightly, and then you go over it with a pen or something darker, and that's how you get to the next level. But you start kind of with this simplified.
100%. And I start with shapes as well, and that's why I have a book like this. This is specifically just for like a lesson.
Oh, nice.
When I have a lesson with a kid who's interested in manga, I don't draw manga, so I want to show them that it's a universal approach of adding steps and like enriching it with fullness. So whereas this was the first book I got,
I should get this for a class.
This was the next book that I got as a kid, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way.
So I never had this as a kid. I always saw it in windows and stuff, like bookstore windows, but I never had a copy of it, so I'm interested to look at this.
This book didn't make any sense to me when I was a kid. Like, I didn't understand it at all, right? It's very like inside baseball. Like, I was like, what are these? Like, I knew that was a pencil.
That doesn't look like a pen.
I was like, that's a pencil. I don't know what that's about. And like, what do I need push pins for? Like, what the hell is this thing?
Oh, I have a tattoo of that thing, actually.
I have one now.
A ruling pen?
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you used a nib?
Yeah.
I remember that moment viscerally.
I think I was like 35.
I was in college. I was like
I was
20.
definitely
I think
like
20.
I was definitely like an adult. And now when I teach kids, this is all I bring, and I just throw them into the deep end, and I'm like, use the brush, use the nib,
Cool.
because it's gonna accelerate them so much more.
I'm gonna bring some nibs in this year for the first time. I'm curious to see how they respond to them.
So like, I knew I loved Marvel Comics because that's the only comics I knew when I was a kid, and so I got this book when I was probably like 10 or something. So the funnest part for me was copying the drawings that were already drawn.
Right.
This stuff made sense. I understood how to make things out of shapes. Sure.
So this is these kind of foreshortening shit is really hard.
Yeah, it's really tough when you're a kid.
Kids draw everything from the side.
This I kind of was like, okay, maybe.
That's a step beyond because these are 3D shapes.
Totally. And so what I would do as a kid is just copy these.
Yeah.
I'd copy the drawings that were already in there. So what you have to remember is when you're teaching kids, they don't know what 1 point perspective is. Their brains can't like handle it. They're still formulating their brain.
Yeah, although I do 1 point perspective with the 5th graders now, which is traditionally in public school is like a middle school thing.
Okay.
And I bet like 2/3 of them get it.
But like
they don't
2
all
and
get
3
it.
point perspective,
No,
forget about
no,
it.
absolutely
Forget about it.
no way.
So like what I would rely on when I would look at this book I would just jump to these pictures of superheroes and copy them.
Things ass.
Yeah. His giant dragon, that wagon. I would just like copy this stuff. This is like what I was into, you know?
Yeah.
Because this is like mostly Kirby stuff that they've pinched, or like Buscema drawings. And I think this book is what solidified my love for John Buscema. It's like in my little kid brain, John Buscema equaled comic books.
Yeah.
Like this was how comic books were made. And it was these that I loved so much more than
I've always been
anything.
interested in the pencils too. I remember the first time I ever went to New York Comic Con.
It was always the pencil drawings.
I was like really, really into the original art booths, and then if some of them had some pencil drawings, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah, seeing the pencil drawings. And I think, now that I look back on it, it was like I was interested in an artist edition. That's what I was interested in. I was interested in seeing how the pros did it and how they got to the finished project. Because like I was saying, none of this like technical stuff made any sense to me at all.
Yeah.
Like what ink marks? Like what? Like I had
how do those ink marks translate into comic books? I have no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea what this was all like it was in another language. So, people talk about this book now and they kind of like they poke fun at it. It makes way more sense now as an adult who has experience making comics than it ever did as a 10-year-old. But I brought this because it really did inspire the idea for this episode.
Yeah, and I think there's still just a phrasing thing here. It's like, why not call it How We Draw Comics the Marvel Way or something? You know what I mean? It's this how-to phrase I think is like so slippery. It's so tricky.
To that end, I will talk about this book underneath this, which is How to Think When You Draw, which I think this is a touch more skillful. Yeah. It's like saying, like, we're not telling you how to draw. It is trying to tell you how to think, which is maybe not great. But how about just like ideas about drawing? Something like
how to approach something.
This book is fantastic.
So who is it? This is Lorenzo?
This is the Etherington Brothers.
Because you have a lot of these.
I have all 7 of them. They're only ever on Kickstarter, so you can't get them in bookstores. You can only get them on Kickstarter.
Okay.
And
this is still get them on Kickstarter, or you have to back it and then
you have to back it. But this is from the Etherington Brothers. And the Etherington Brothers do a great job of showing you all different kinds of stuff. And I think these books are very helpful. These are the books that I go back to whenever I want a reference guide. On, again, this is the type of thing you use as reference, and then you draw it in your own style.
Right.
But it does help break down what you're doing. They have really good ideas about how to take anything you want to draw. Shoes are particularly difficult, right? So it's like any angle you want, or like shadows, like what is happening. It shows you step by step what is happening when you draw a thing. So I really do like these books. There's 7 volumes of them out.
What, each one is a theme, or each one is just like...
It's just like a collection of random stuff, actually. They're organized by theme, but each book is not complete. Like this one has character design, animals and monsters, vehicles, machines, elements, composition.
Are they all called How to Think When You Draw?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so this is volume 5 that we're looking at right now. But like, look at volume 4, right? Volume 4 has different stuff. Similar themes.
Those are really well designed. This reminds me of, did you ever get those like House Industries typography sample books or anything?
No, but I do have some typography books here that we can talk about in a little
We
bit.
can get to that later,
Yeah.
But these are sweet. Vehicles are fucking hard.
Yeah, it basically just like breaks down in a really easy and approachable way.
Textures too, not just the thing, but like the different types of the thing.
Totally. I couldn't tell you, like, I couldn't speak highly enough about these books. I think you could go way worse than, learning from these brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Two brothers. All right, so I brought those. Another book that I brought, which has been invaluable when I'm teaching, is Making Comics by Linda Berry.
Yes, I use this as well. Actually, last week.
A totally different kind of book.
Yeah.
Because this book is an experience.
Totally. And you can do it linearly. Like this is a full curriculum. Like if you're an aspiring or a new art teacher, you can start at the start of this, and it'll give you an entire semester's worth of lessons to do.
Yeah.
But I also just pull out these randomly out. I actually used this during COVID a lot when we were remote teaching on Zoom. I'm trying to find the one I like the most. But these are great because you can do them with minimal supplies. I love that the demonstration is on lined paper, because a lot of kids feel like if it's lined paper you have to write on it, you can't draw on it. So these are all demonstrated on this lined notebook. So you can get a composition notebook like this for like 50 cents.
It's also very cool that from a production standpoint that they make the whole thing look like a giant composition notebook.
Yeah, totally.
Like if you flip to the cover, you'll see that the whole thing is set up like just a filled out notebook. Point of view. That's it. That's the one you think. No,
I do like this. There's a big X on the
X
page.
one. Yeah.
I love that one because we did a project. I had to do a bulletin board all about empathy because our theme for our school this year is like stories are important for building empathy with other people.
I'm laughing because there's like empathy, something, you plus me, or something. There's like some song that I was like. From some show, I forget. There's a bookmark in it.
Yeah. We must talk about this before. But yeah, so you draw a big X on the page, and then you find an object, and you draw that object, and you write about it. You say, like, I'm sitting here looking at this object. It's cold outside. I hear my neighbors laughing. I don't know. And then you draw yourself from the object's perspective, or you draw what the object sees. And so this was cool on Zoom because the kids would find stuff all over their house, and they'd bring the weirdest stuff back, and they'd be like, they would write, like, I'm here, I'm a spatula, and I'm here in an unusual place, in a place that doesn't look like the kitchen, or whatever. And, like, kids get this instantly. And every lesson in this book is like that, too. It's like, these are things that they're geniusly structured and designed in a way that kids have instant entree into whatever's going on.
I agree. I think one of the best things about this book is that it really encourages you to be present. Like, you have to be right there doing the thing. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the materials are minimal, so it's very approachable. The kids do have entree. There's no barrier to entry. And they're exercises that are very enriching creatively.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're uncannily potent.
Yeah. And it's very little. This is kind of the opposite of how to draw something.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
all
there's
of
no
these,
guidance.
I think one of the reasons I like this the most is it's like, here, write down a bunch of jobs and then draw a character that is that job. And so it invites kids to do things on their own. And then she's always going back to I think you had a Brunetti book up here somewhere.
Yep.
She references Brunetti as a great starting point. I think it's this book specifically, which is like, if you have a student who doesn't really love to draw or doesn't know how to draw characters, like, introduce them to this idea of just like circle head, shape body, and then lines. Like, comics are all about storytelling, so the way you draw doesn't really matter. It's what you're saying and what you're writing. So if you have a student who has a hard time drawing or is like hesitant to draw something that's a little more elaborate, you can introduce them to the Brunetti way, which is these just very simple shapes. Because a lot of times kids who have a hard time drawing, they still have stuff they want to say, they still have stories they want to tell, and Absolutely. They can still get into these exercises if you give them just the most basic way to do it. Other kids will go hog wild on this shit and do these most elaborate things.
And Linda's put out other books too, like these are notes on being a professor. So this
I don't have this one.
This kind of reads like a diary. It's very much a product of this process put into form, and it documents one of her semesters as a teacher. Very, very good. Another group or school of books that I brought here. Well, let's talk about this first. Okay, so one of the earliest books that I got in the field of making comics was Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
Never heard of it.
And furthermore, Making Comics by Scott McCloud. So whenever you are first starting off in comics, there's someone, usually one of the first people you talk to will recommend this book. Mm-hmm. I don't think this book is particularly useful if you're trying to make comics. I find that this book reads like a college thesis about why comics are art. My takeaway from this book is that we're justifying why comics deserve to be in a place of high esteem with the other fine arts. So read this. Definitely, I think it's good. Like, it's a good step along the path, but I don't think this is necessary at all.
I've never actually read it start to finish.
And it's no disrespect to Scott McCloud. When this came out, this was a very necessary step on where we are today. Without this book, we don't have graphic novels in libraries. We probably don't have the term as prevalent as graphic novels. We probably don't have as many classes in colleges as we do now, and it is largely due to this book. Also, I don't need to, I'm not taking anything away from this book. This book's been in print for like 100 prints, and it's like evergreen IP.
I don't think Scott's
he's
comics,
not mad.
Scott's comics don't sell anywhere near the numbers that this book does.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm saying, like, he's not mad about it. He's doing fine.
Totally.
So I would say this: if I got this at the same age when I got this would have been great for 10-year-old, 9 or 10-year-old me. Okay. Because, like, this is a good way to try to think about those ideas. But again, as an adult coming to comics and kind of like already having my dabbling, in drawing my whole life, it's not necessarily, like I said, the voice that got to the issues that I wanted. I want to know, how am I inking? What is inking? How do I apply the ink to the drawing in a way that gives it the look that I want? So often I find, like, what most people are asking when they're saying, how do I make comics, is really just, how do I ink? How do I ink comics? And that's where something like this comes in really handy. The Art of Comic Book Inking by Gary Martin, Steve Root. So Steve Root is one of, like, my favorite comic artists.
This might be intimidating. I mean, he's like, you start with, like, it's like how to draw like Michelangelo.
Yeah, well, here's the thing though, it's that several artists have their hand in this book.
Okay.
So, like, they show art and examples from several different inkers inking the same stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they show, like, how each inker does it differently. So, like, establishing your style. So it'll show this figure in pencil, and then each one of these is done by a different inker.
That's cool.
And so in that way, you can see the subtle differences that create the look that you want, right? And so there is other useful stuff in here, like facial shading, which is a thing, how you might ink the backgrounds in different ways.
I mean, do you have any of those
This is very practical.
Yeah.
What's that?
Do you have any of those Byrne Hogarth books? I should have brought that one.
Oh, I don't.
I have one.
Byrne Hogarth.
I think that's his name. He did a series of these, and I have one that's specifically about light and shading that my uncle gave me when I was a kid. That book, like, had a huge impact on me. I completely forgot I had that.
No, we can definitely look at that. So here's a page of The Moth, and it is drawn by every different inker. So Gary Martin, who's co-authoring this book, and then we have Joe Rubenstein, Carl Story, William Stout, and you get to see the examples of the different inkers. And then they do the same thing with Austin, Martin, Palmer, Rude, P. Craig Russell, and Scott Williams, where they do a page of Nexus. And so you see each page and the difference
That's really cool.
between how the artists do it. This is invaluable to see these little differences once you already know how to ink.
Scott Williams on this?
Oh, Scott Williams, sure.
How many lines on that page?
Yeah, right, exactly. We turn the page and it's just a Jim Lee drawing. So
actually, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
it is recognizably his line, though. That's interesting.
Yeah, that, like, syrupy line that he does.
Yeah.
The cool thing about this book too is that in the back they give you that same page in blue line.
Oh man, let's do it.
Let's scan this. We'll scan it and do it. Now it's your turn. It says, "Here's some Bristol board."
I want to find. Oh man, we should try to see if anybody has done this. It would be cool to source other people's, like, people who have done it, and have them send us a picture of it. If you've done anything like this in a demo book, send it to us. I want to see.
Well, that's the perfect segue into the next book that I brought, which isn't exactly a how-to, but it does have what you were talking about.
Fucking huge.
Because, first of all, this book is massive, right?
Is that 11 by 17?
This was Jim Shooter's idea. Yeah, these are 11 by 17. Now, here's the thing. These blue line pages where you do this inking or plotting or whatever, these have been done by multiple artists.
Yeah.
So you might not see this very well on this because it's like very light blue line, But the idea is that this is how you get it from the penciler, and then you would ink on top of it. So you get a page for each example of the thing that you might be doing. So if you're a colorist, you get a coloring example, and this is like, just give me a chance. I want to work for Marvel, right?
Is this on Bristol board too?
Every page is on Bristol.
Oh wow, cool.
So you get this, like,
where'd you get this?
I bought it on eBay. I wish I was cool enough to know about it when it came out, but I was like 2. So like, I don't know. This came out in 83.
83.
So,
that was the year I was born.
Yeah, exactly. So how would we know? So anyway, it gives you color guides if you want to try coloring. It gives you blank pages that you can do that on.
Cool.
It gives you pages to ink on.
I think another thing that I didn't realize this for a very long time is that you see a comic book and it's this big and you're like, how do they draw it that small? It's amazing. I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the beauty of inking is from doing it big, and then a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the precision just go shunk when you reduce the page. And there's a lot to be said for working at a much larger size.
Exactly. And the Marvel method here, they put the lettering in for you first.
Oh, interesting.
I was under the impression that it happened the other way around, but that you'd ink first and then they put it down. But I think this might be at pencils, then lettering, then inking goes down. And so they have a script for you. If you want to practice your lettering, you can do that.
Did they mail these pages? I guess a lot of them are working in the same office.
You would rip out the part. No, you buy this book and then you.
No, I mean the actual when they were.
Oh
working
yeah,
on
they
the
were in the
actual book,
office,
they were all in
or
the
they'd
same
mail
office,
it. Yeah. So then there's examples and blank pages for you to do all this stuff. You can do plotting.
Oh, that's cool.
You could do inking, scripting, lettering, etc. So this book amazing. And to your point, you were saying like who's done the blue line pages on this? Well, there famously are like some great artists that did this. Like Charles Burns does one.
Oh, really?
And he just like totally takes it off in his own direction.
I was gonna say we should do it, but like fuck it up. Yeah.
Well, we can continue to do it. We can put the call out there. Like, I'd be happy if people are willing to join in with us. Either one of these books, we could send you one of these printed out on Bristol, and then you could ink it and
You just scan it,
send it back.
scan it, and put it up as
100%.
like a downloadable thing.
Well, I also have another one of these. I've got 2 of them in case I wanted to rip one of these apart and scan it, But yeah.
We could make a zine out of. You pick one page and have a bunch of people do that one page.
I gotta say shouts to Jim Rugg, because without Jim, I wouldn't have seen either one of these books. So
Cool.
Thank you, Jim. But yeah, I think we could do that. I think we could definitely do that. Now, since we looked at Marvel, I also want to give some shine to DC. Where would we be without the big 2, right? I was turned on to these DC writing guides and coloring guides and inking guides by none other than the fabulous Carl Potts. Mm-hmm. Carl Potts was a teacher of mine at SVA. He is a wonderful person, a great artist, and a very talented editor. He worked at Marvel for a long time. And one of his credits, he discovered Jim Lee. So like the now publisher of DC.
Discovered how? Like,
Well, do
we know?
Talent would come into the Marvel offices by way of submissions, and editors would look through submissions and pick up artists that they thought deserved a shot. Well, Jim Lee got his start on Punisher War Journal, I think it was, when that was one of Carl's books. I actually have some of those early books.
Carl wrote it?
Carl was editor.
Oh, editor, okay.
And I think he did other things. He's responsible for designing that logo and a couple of...
The DC logo?
No, the Punisher logo.
Oh.
And like
I've actually never read a Punisher book.
Well, back then, Punisher was a huge seller for Marvel. Like
Yeah.
they'd split it off into multiple titles, blah blah blah. Anyway, he showed me this book because it's part of his his curriculum when he's teaching, and then that turned me on to all the other books. So we have a DC guide for everything.
This is cool. This one is specifically creating the art of visuals. I was gonna say this is technical, like how to read the page.
Exactly. So these books I find to be very more manual based and less anecdotal. So this is more my speed when I want the pure information. I don't want a lot of anecdotes. I just want like, how do I do it? How do I do this? How do I do that? This is very practical advice. So I would recommend starting whichever area you want to work on and take it from there. Cool. And this is a good overall. This is like his course basically in a nutshell. But then we have other stuff. You can write with Denny O'Neil. You can talk about lettering and coloring with Chiarello and Todd Klein. Inking with Jansen or penciling with Jansen, like you were saying. You're not used to seeing him do pencils.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a book drawn start to finish by Klaus Janson. I only know him as an inker.
Yeah. So where is the indie how to draw comics guide, you know?
Well, so a great point. I was thinking about that actually when we first brought this up, was like, this is cool. This is interesting because like there are editors here, and so the editors are kind of guiding. They're saying like, if you want to work for DC, if you want to work for Marvel, here's some tenets that we believe in. Whereas indie comics is like, there's no rules.
There's no rules.
It's a fucking Wild West.
Do whatever you want.
Do literally anything you want to.
I guess
are we like steering that ship? Are we like the answer is you can do anything you want. There's no guide.
There's no guide.
Is that the point of the show, is to be like how to make indie comics is like you just do it.
I think the point of the show is make this thing you want to make. You know, do it to the best of your ability and put your heart onto the page, and it'll come out in the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with bridging to sources if you want to practice. But you have to remember, like, I'm not trying to draw Superman or Batman. I don't care about a male power fantasy. Like, that's not what I want to write about or draw about. But is there useful information in this that will make my comics book drawing? Yeah, better? Totally. Absolutely.
And if there isn't, you know, read it anyway. Like, if you're interested in this stuff, like, pull from as many different sources as possible. Speaking
of different sources, I got this book, Draw Comics, Here's How. I kind of like this. This is kind of like, it's the reverse of what we've been saying. It's not how to, it's like, draw comics! Exclamation point. Here's how.
Now that I have your attention, here's
how.
So
now, I will say this trigger warning for... because this book was put out in 1933.
Holy shit.
I will say, you know, be warned, there are like problematic depictions of race and culture in here.
Okay.
But that being said, this book is actually really interesting. And it reminds me of one of those books that was put out in the 40s, the U.S. Army Guide to Cartooning, which I gave you the
like
one
Bill
for
Malden thing?
Those little green ones.
Oh, yeah.
That it was put out by the U.S. Army by Popular Mechanics. But this has like a lot of like practical advice when you're first starting off of like, how do I reproduce a drawing?
Yeah.
You know, they have these like pantograph, which is the name for that thing I didn't even realize.
Wait, I don't even know what is a pantograph.
A pantograph is like metal lattice that slides like this and it automatically creates... It has numbers and lines on it.
Oh, for scale?
And it creates scale. And you can upscale your drawings.
Oh, what is it? There was a thing they talked about on Jim Rugg's show.
That's it.
But there's a different one. It has like spikes on it.
Yeah.
And it's for perspective.
That's it. Same thing.
But this is for scale.
I think it's the same thing.
Because the one I was thinking of has like these little needles on it. And so... It can be small on this side and big on this side, so that if you're drawing perspective, you can get that without a vanishing point way over here.
Right, I understand.
I can't remember what that thing is called.
I saw someone using it. I think I saw Mahdi using it recently.
I want to get one of those things.
So it shows you different heads and different faces and things. It shows you how to do expressions, how to draw hands. This is like the original cartooning guide. I mean...
no one hits people with a rolling pin anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Bring that back.
Oh my god. I mean... If you were a cartoonist working for the strips, like you would have, this is what you would have looked at, you know? This would have been the only book. I mean, look at how brown the newsprint is.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
And this is not dissimilar from the manga book we were looking at, too. It's like, here's a...
It's still
more advanced stick figure with the articulation points. Like, I teach this to the kids, too. Like... Kids who draw stick figures, you just teach them how to do this. Take it one step further. Just give them points of articulation. It blows their whole mind apart.
Do you remember, though, when you were a kid and you're like, that sucks. I don't want to draw a stick figure.
Well, right, totally.
No, I understand, but it's like the kid frustration of being like, that fucking sucks. I don't want to draw that.
Yeah. But
that's
then you go to here and you outline it.
Oh,
and
well,
you fill it out.
But I'm like, that still sucks. I want to draw this guy, you know?
Right,
like,
getting from here to here is still a leap.
So impatient, too. Like, I was so impatient. I didn't want to learn how to draw something.
Yeah.
I wanted to draw the thing. Don't teach me how to draw Batman. Teach me how to draw Batman.
I want to draw that Batman.
I want to draw Batman right now.
Don't teach me how to draw a character. Teach me how to be Jim Lee.
Yeah, right, exactly. So this I found fascinating, and I plucked one out of eBay. I don't even know who turned me on to this book, honestly. I think I saw it.
Yeah, animals.
I think I was searching for like a different book, and this came up, and I was like, holy cow, 1933, baby.
It's cool. It also
it's
looks
the
awesome.
Same on both sides, which I love it. And I would totally rock this. I would totally rock this as a t-shirt. Like, this is
actually, dude,
graphic.
isolate this part, make that a shirt. That should be our next comics people shirt. I'm sure this is public domain.
It might just be. Well, yeah. It's almost 100 years old by now.
Dude, done. Let's see. Actually, we should edit this out.
No one's gonna sue us for it. It's Whitman Publishing in Wisconsin. They don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Copyright
this would be a good shirt, dude. Actually, that's a similar style to our current shirt. Shouts out to our current shirt, by the way. Go buy a shirt.
That's right. Mike and I, we want to invest in some better lighting and some audio-visual upgrades. So if you're at home going, well, I really like but their audio isn't as clear as I would like, then buy a shirt and help us get to the next microphone.
How come there's no tracking shots in this show? Well, right. Let's make your dream a reality.
That's right. Pitch in. All right. So
there's definitely wear this shirt.
There's Draw Comics Here's How by George Leonard Carlson. And talking about somebody named George, we just had a great episode with George Olson.
And here's Ross George.
And here's Ross F. George.
Good segue.
A similar time period, and this is about lettering. I don't think you have comics if you don't have lettering. So I think lettering is a skill that you should also hone.
Yeah.
By the way, I love a used book.
Oh, hell yeah. Like with all like people's handwriting.
People's drawings all over it. The cover is taped together.
This actually adds so much to the quality.
It really
of this,
does.
too.
It's drawn all through it, and on the back there's like stamps, and someone took like notes on it.
That's great. Like you could take inspiration from this
Totally.
aesthetic in addition to just the design of the actual book.
My takeaway too, it's like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Do whatever the hell you want to do.
Totally.
But like, it should be an expression of you. So ultimately, whatever you're stoked with, that's great. If you want to improve, there is information out there. I don't know what improve means to you, but it's like, if you want to communicate an idea more clearly, if that is your goal, then there are resources available. And I think that's what we were pointing to. This book I included. It's not a how-to book at all. Mm-hmm. It's in fact an artist edition. But the reason why I included this is because if you want to know about storyboarding,
which are comics basically,
yeah, absolutely. If you want to know about storyboarding, if you want to know about character design, this book shows you how. Mm-hmm. And I think showing is so much better than telling.
Totally.
So like you can see how Toth would design characters.
I love this too because a lot of times you see contemporary turnarounds and everyone's just standing straight up facing the camera. Yeah. I love that the Toth turnarounds are like, it's actually showing
the character,
and it's it's the character while they're actually doing something.
Totally.
Like it's not just like stand stiff like an action figure.
There's characterization in here. The Riddler's riddling, she's sauntering, they're about to whip you, and this dude is a goon.
Solomon Grundy, baby.
Yeah, so he's
born on a Monday.
He's lunging. We have the Scarecrow and Bizarro, and the storyboards here are brilliant. This works at the size of a postage stamp. Mm-hmm. You know exactly what's going on.
Lighting on
this is why Toth gets so much dap, because he's just like so clear. It's textured. It's fantastic.
Even though he was apparently, by all accounts, a ruthless dickhead to everybody.
Well, I think they say that he is a master without a masterpiece. So he went hard into television, and that's what happens. You're working all this production for things that get shut down, they never get produced, they never get made, but you get paid well.
Yeah, his masterpiece is like all the art that was inspired by it.
100%.
What do they say? Legacy. They say that about what, like
Kirby?
No, I was thinking the Velvet Underground. They always say like,
right.
Even if you don't know who the Velvet Underground is, all your favorite bands wouldn't exist without that band.
Totally.
So like that Toth is like Velvet Underground is pretty well known.
The touchstone.
Like it's a slightly more obscure version of that same thing.
For comics, he's known, I think.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I agree. I think you're right. And one of the things you said when you first saw this book was like, I didn't realize how much of my childhood was influenced by Toth.
Oh yeah.
Like between Space Ghost and the Herculoids, action figures here, the Herculoids right here. Oh my god, I loved this character when I was a kid.
Even now, like something like the Venture Brothers, like does not exist without Toth
100%,
at all. I love Venture Brothers. But
this is Venture Brothers is basically just,
and it's pulling from a lot of different influences, but it doesn't exist at all without Toth.
100%. I love this book so much. This is probably my favorite of all of them.
There's 3 of these, right?
There's 3. I have them all. It's animated, illustrated, and isolated. Mm-hmm.
That was when he was sent to Siberia.
That's right.
Excommunicated.
That's right. He and Napoleon shared an oubliette.
That'll be our next stage production.
There you go.
Napoleon and
Toth and Napoleon in an oubliette.
Yeah.
These drawings are great. I love this character.
There's all the black on that character.
So cool.
You never ever in a million years you go to Google any like character turnaround sheet. There is nowhere near that much black.
I love it. It's so great. I wonder what he did when he was drawing this character at night.
Oh yeah, they just
Gloop and Gleep. Those are great.
Hercules is amazing.
And this is like, there's no He-Man without Toth, right?
He-Man. I always remember this rhino guy that shoots shit out of the hole.
Yeah, right there.
Cool idea. Tundra.
I don't think I knew its name. I love all his wizards and his weird statue characters. His robots are dope. Everything's like really fun. He made
this book makes me want to draw so bad.
Basic shapes, characters that are just like so well thought out and really cool design.
And it makes it look so easy.
I love the costuming. Yeah, he really does make it look so easy.
Yeah, the costuming has such like a 70s like Barbarella kind of feel to it.
Everyone's got their boots and their sleeves and their gloves and stuff.
These cowboys are so sick.
It's amazing. Just a master. So yeah, I mean that's about it for me. I don't really have much else.
Yeah, I mean there's
probably 20 more books here.
There's a million of these. Go to a used bookstore is I think the way to do it. Like if you go to a contemporary bookstore, you're gonna find 2 of these maybe, and it's this one, and it's limited. But I think dig up this shit.
We didn't even talk about Will Eisner.
Get online, get on eBay, go to your local used bookstore, pick up something that's dog-eared and written on, and pick up 3 books that are different from each other, and I guess go from there. Maybe that's what I would do.
Dig into some of these books that we have here. These Eisner books are really good. There's a lot more out there for you if you are interested in making comics and telling stories. There's a lot of stuff that you can talk about, and there's plenty of visual artist books that are worth it. This is one of them. If you're into anatomy, this is probably the best anatomy book you can get right here.
Oh, this is like cinematography.
Well, it's a lot about color.
Oh, cool.
Color and light, just like how to understand it. And this is probably one of the best anatomy books ever by Michael Hampton. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and just one other thing is I think like don't only look at books about comics. Like I think like something that's really valuable for making art in any medium is like pull from every possible resource you can find. Like if you're only making comics based on books that tell you how to make comics, I have a hard time believing that comics can be a lot of fun. Like it's going to be kind of, I don't know, maybe pedantic and paint by numbers. Like these are great resources to aid in storytelling, but I'm just such a fan of being like, read books, go see plays, go to a park,
100%.
Like, look around you and use these to sort of accentuate what you're already doing.
And most importantly, don't listen to anybody.
Yeah, also tell us to fuck off if you think we're full of shit.
Just go do your thing.
Yeah.
Just do you, man.
Do you, man.
Do you, man. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Toodles.
Later.